This is an excerpt reading from the book Out from the Heart, covering the chapter, The First Steps in the Higher Life. This chapter, James Allen, the author, clearly outlines the way to purify the mind and the heart in order for a spiritual aspirant to acquire the knowledge of truth, and or for man to know truth and fulfillment in life. James Allen takes these concrete actions and correlates their effects not only on the character of the individual, but how we sabotage the knowledge of truth through an impure body, through an impure speech, and through lack of action or understanding of duty. And through this chapter, which we will break down into those three categories, the purification of the body, speech, and action, we will uncover exactly how this purification shifts the states of consciousness. Now, the purification of the heart is commonly seen across multiple lineages. In Egyptian myth, we see this as the measurement of the heart against a feather when entering the land of the dead, or the duat. We see it listed by Saint Germain, who speaks of the path of the alchemist, and the real truth is hidden behind the purity of the heart. In Vedic, we see it as also the Hiranyagarbha, the golden egg, the purity of the heart. And in Christianity, you cannot cross through the eye of the needle. So this purity of heart is a direct correlation into the gateway into a higher knowledge or a higher state of being, the state resonance. And as James Allen breaks this down, he makes it more applicable for concrete steps in order for that to be achieved. All right, so let's begin The First Steps in the Higher Life by James Allen. Seeing that the path of virtue is the path of knowledge, and that before the all-embracing principles of truth can be comprehended, perfection in the more lowly steps must be acquired. How then shall discipline of truth commence? How shall one who aspires to the righting of his mind and the purification of his heart, that heart which is the fountain and repository of all issues in life, all lessons learned of virtue, how is thus he built himself up in strength and knowledge? How is he going to destroy ignorance and the ills of life? What are these first lessons, first steps? How are they learned? How are they practiced? How are they mastered and understood? The first lessons consist in overcoming those wrong mental conditions which are most easily eradicated, and which are the common barriers to spiritual progress, as well as in practicing the simple domestic and social virtues. And the reader will be better aided if I group and classify the first 10 steps in 3 lessons as follows. And James Allen breaks it down into 3 categories, listing these categories as the vices to be overcome and eradicated. Number 1, vices of the body. Discipline of the body, covered in 1, indolence, and 2, self-indulgence. The second category, vices of the tongue, or discipline of speech, covered in 1, slander, 2, gossip and idle conversation, 3, abusive and unkind speech, 4, levity or irreverent speech, 5, captiousness or fault-finding speech. And the third category, virtues to be practiced and acquired, discipline of inclination, covered in 1, unselfish performance of duty, 2, unswerving rectitude, and 3, unlimited forgiveness. This is part 2 in the reading of The First Steps to the Higher Life from the book Out from the Heart by James Allen. The 2 vices of the body and the 5 of the tongue are so called because they are manifested in the body and tongue, and also because by so definitely classifying them, the mind of the reader will be better helped. But it must be clearly understood that these vices arise primarily in the mind and are wrong conditions of heart worked out in the body and the tongue. The existence of such chaotic conditions is an indication that the mind is altogether unenlightened as to the real meaning and purpose of life, and their eradication is the beginning of a virtuous, steadfast, and enlightened life. But how shall they be overcome and eradicated? By first and at once checking and controlling their outward manifestations. By suppressing the wrong act, this will stimulate the mind to watchfulness and reflection, until by repeated practice, it will at last become to perceive and understand the dark and wrong conditions of mind, out of which such acts spring, and it will abandon them entirely. It will be seen that the first steps in the discipline of the mind is the overcoming of indolence. This is the easiest step, and until it is perfectly accomplished, the other steps cannot be taken. The clinging to indolence constitutes a complete barrier to the path of truth. Indolence consists in giving the body more ease and sleep than it requires, in procrastinating, and in shrieking and neglecting those things which should receive immediate attention. This condition of laziness must be overcome by rousing up the body at an early hour, giving it just the right amount of sleep it requires for complete recuperation, and by doing promptly and vigorously every task and duty, no matter how small, as it comes along. On no account should food or drink be taken in bed, and to lie in ease and reverie is a habit fatal to promptness and resolution of character and the purity of mind. Nor should one attempt to do his thinking at such a time. Strong, pure, and true thinking is impossible under such circumstances. A man should go to bed to sleep, not to think. He should get up to think and work, not to sleep. The next step is the overcoming of self-indulgence or gluttony. The glutton is he who eats for animal gratification only, without considering the true end and object in eating, who eats more than his body requires and is greedy after sweet things and rich dishes. Such undisciplined desire can only be overcome by reducing the quantity of food eaten and the number of meals per day, and by resorting to a simple, uninvolved diet. Regular hours should be set apart for meals, and eating at other times should be rigidly avoided. Suppers should be abolished, as they are altogether unnecessary, and lead to heavy sleep and cloudiness of mind. The pursuit of such a method of discipline will rapidly bring the hitherto ungoverned appetite under control, and as the sensual sin of self-indulgence is taken out of the mind, the right selection of food will be instinctively and infallibly adapted to the purified mental condition. It should be well borne in the mind that the change of heart is the needful thing, and that any change of diet which does not subserve this is futile. Whilst one eats for enjoyment, he is gluttonous. The heart must be purified of sensual craving and gustatory lust. When the body is well controlled and firmly guided, when that which is to be done is done vigorously, and when no task or duty is delayed, when early rising has become a delight, when frugality, temperance, and abstinence are firmly established, when one is contented with the food which is put before him, no matter how scanty and plain, and the craving for gustatory pleasure is at an end, then are the first two steps in the higher life accomplished. Then is the first great lesson in the truth learned. Thus is established the heart, the foundation of a poised, self-governed, virtuous life.